This recipe is loosely based on something mommy would do. And I guess, whenever I have leftover stewed pork or beef or chicken, and it can be without meat, it doesn't necessarily have to have any sort of protein in there. But mommy would make it with leftover stewed pork. Pretty much the same recipe, except today I am using some leftover fried corned beef, and this is corned beef or bully beef out of the can. It's been in the fridge, and I just added about a tablespoon or so of olive oil to the pan, and I'm just gonna gently heat up the leftover corned beef, which I fried up. And it's a one of them top things we like in the Caribbean, even though it's from a can. And there's onion, black pepper, scotch bonnet pepper, tomato. Some people put frozen corn in there, sweet peppers, all those different things. I have a tiny bit of ketchup in there, as well as some black pepper. No salt. My heat is on medium, and you saw me go in with that bit of olive oil, and that's just gonna go. It's a means of using up what we have. You know what I mean? That leftover corned beef has been in the fridge there for about a couple days. And while the corned beef does have onion in there already, along with garlic, I have some chopped garlic in there. I like adding a bit more onion in there, just thinly sliced. And I'm just going to soften that up, and that's the reason for adding the little bit of extra fat in there. The corned beef in itself, if you head over to CaribbeanPot.com, you will see that recipe over there. And while some people start off when frying their corned beef with oil, I know there's a lot of fat in a can of corned beef, so I don't add any oil. So just be mindful of that. And I'm using a non-stick pan here because I'm trying to keep it somewhat healthy. Growing up in the Caribbean, we would have used Bok Choy, but here I have what's called Singapore Bok Choy, and that is just the tough stems part, and it's been washed and chopped up, as you see. Because the sort of stems will take a bit longer to cook, I'm gonna add it at this point. Remember, your heat is on medium, and the remnants of water from washing it, and I have the green, the top parts chopped up as well. The remnants of water will create steam and help to cook it. At this point, we want to do a couple things. Add some fresh ground black pepper in there. And while the corned beef out of that can be high in sodium, we still need just a bit more in here. So I'm just going to go in with some salt, and that is just some sea salt. Totally up to you what type of salt you like cooking with. I'm going to hit that to stir and let that cook for about 3 or 4 minutes just to soften up a bit. What I must also mention is that when mommy would make this for us, she would usually serve it as a side to sada roti. And it's one of them things we just grew up enjoying. What I was going to mention is that she would never chop it up this big. It would be in tiny pieces, keeping in mind the sort of cook time for it and to get it nice and tender. And she always liked to, the lady have a word she used, everything must fry down, so she wanted it nice and dry. In my case here, I am not using it, and it goes great on top of your favorite rice. So whether it's roti or rice or bread or whatever it is you want to eat it with. In my case, I am treating this almost like a stir fry, and I'm just going to eat it on its own as it is. I'm trying to cut back on the amount of carbs in my diet, so the rice and roti are trying to hold off. It's been about 3 minutes. You can see I got a vigorous bubble going on, and there's quite a bit of liquid because the bok choy, or the one mommy would use, again, pak choy, that the big long ones, really green and leafy and stems and everything else. Typically it would let out a lot of liquid. It needs to cook down. What I also should mention, if you wanted to add a bit of crushed garlic in there, you can do that. In my fried corned beef, I just want the corned beef flavor to come through, so I'm not adding any additionally. If you wanted to add some Thai chili or bird's eye or any sort of spicy pepper, if you want to add some scotch bonnet, some habanero, it's up to you. I have, and you would have seen it earlier there when I emptied the corned beef into the pot. I had some scotch bonnet pepper in there. Ginger, grated ginger, by all means, it works in this dish. It's been 4.5 minutes. I'm noticing it's starting to soften up to where I want it to be. I don't want to overcook it because I like that slight crunch from it. And this is why in any of my stir fries I always put pak choy or bok choy in there. Now with that in mind, I'm gonna start adding the leafy green parts now. And you notice I didn't pour, all I'm doing is shaking it onto the bowl, in the bowl first, because I don't want to add too much moisture. And again, it is from cooking it that would have created, from washing it would have caused it to have that extra water. And you can see what I'm talking about. I don't want to add that to the pot. It's being very gentle because I'm not trying to clean up a dirty stove as always. And all I want this to do is another 3 minutes or so just for the leaves to soften up a bit. At that point we will taste it for salt, adjust that salt. If you want to hit it a bit more black pepper, you can certainly do that. But you notice how easy, how simple this all came together. And again, if you don't want to use the sort of protein in there, I use the remaining, the leftovers, corned beef. But you can do it without that. Or if you wanted to add some salted cod at the very start, prepare some saltfish, add it in there. Just nice things, man. I've got some tomato here. I'm just going to toss that in. The acidity is going to balance off the flavors. Plus, I just like adding tomatoes in using tomatoes any opportunity I get. It brightens it up. And we've talked about this before. We eat with our eyes first. Sup, soldiers? Listen, if you enjoy this recipe, I'd really appreciate it if you hit subscribe and click that bell notification thing. If you've made the recipe, take a picture and send it to me. Email address down here. Trying to tell people the email address, then Butts will take the address and do all kind of thing with it. And tag me on Instagram at Caribbean Pod. I really appreciate you guys, and thanks for being in my kitchen with me today. Irie. At this point, you will personalize things to your own liking. You will taste it for salt, and you will continue cooking it to the sort of doneness that you like, you prefer, you enjoy. In my case here, I'm going to shut off the stove and let the residual heat just warm through that tomato for me. Chris here, CaribbeanPod.com. A sort of a loose take on a recipe mommy would do for us growing up in the islands, Trinidad and Tobago. And I'm sure throughout the Caribbean there are different versions of this. So I do hope you get an opportunity to give this one a try. Shanghai Bok Choy. Well, I say, thing looking good. I'm going to tuck in, turn up the stove, tuck in, and I'm organizing myself accordingly.